When I started practicing law years ago, I noticed very quickly that the cards were stacked against innocent accident victims. That's not right. That's why my law firm is dedicated to working exclusively on behalf of those who need it the most. I'm Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. When you're in an accident, we can help you get the compensation you deserve. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
Welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of February 7th or 8th. I'm not sure which one it is. I do know that we missed one day. Our Monday time slot was missed. So I got a few emails saying that where's the podcast and so on. So we're back today, a day later. And we got a chance to see the Raptors beat the Detroit Pistons for their third win in a row. And that's Phoenix, Portland, and Detroit. So now the Raptors have won 14 of 15 games. It doesn't even feel like our team. Anyways, to dissect what's going on, I got... the amateur rapper, professional reporter, aspiring songwriter, and the Armon Gilliam of Raptors Republic, the king of content himself, Blake Murphy. Hey, man.
What a weird introduction.
But so true, though. The Armon Gilliam of Raptors Republic. Remember Armon Gilliam?
No, I don't know. The reference is lost on me.
Oh, Armon Gilliam was the ultimate, versatile player. Some might even compare him to Scottie Pippen of old. A good scorer. Old NBA fans, obviously older than Blake and younger than me, might remember that. Google him up, Blake. Armon Gilliam.
No, I know who he is. I didn't get the comparison. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. He's good, man. He was like an all-rounder. Could do anything.
Armon Gilliam.
Armon Gilliam, yeah, for sure.
The hammer.
Yeah. So, Raptor talk, man. Do you recognize this team? Like, are these the Raptors? 103-89 against the Pistons, 35-16 overall. Like, before doing this podcast, I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm so used to the team being crappy and being disappointed that when they win, when they're 35-16, it just doesn't even feel like my team.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they're not your team. That's... But you know what? The Pistons kind of look like the Pistons, which helped in that regard. The game was almost identical to the January 30th one, with the exception of the Raptors not giving a bunch of points back late. I don't know if they're not the Raptors that you've come to be used to. I think that they've found a kind of level of chemistry and a groove that we're not used to seeing. They've really taken care of a pretty soft stretch of schedule. And yeah, I mean, I'm impressed. They're already almost at the win total that I gave them before the season. I was not negative, I didn't think, but I thought it would take a while for this team to gel. I thought the defensive schemes would take a while to implement and everyone get used to. And I had them down for 44 or 45 wins. Yeah. They're already at 35. Like, it's insane. They're second in the East, and I think it's far enough along now, and that cushion's grown enough. And I know people will say until they beat the Bulls, they can't claim it, but like, the Raptors are the second best team in the East.
Yeah. And the chemistry seems to be coming along too. You mentioned that in your comment, but last year's team, even when they were packing up the wins, the chemistry wasn't there. It was a lot of one-on-one and ISO play. And the team, the way they're playing right now, like tonight we saw contributions from Terrence Ross, JV, shooting a high percentage. Like, everybody's contributing. It feels like that post-Rudy Gay era when the Raptors had just traded him away and gotten Vasquez, Patterson, and Salmons. And a similar type of play in terms of, like, the teammates depending on each other.
Yeah, the counter to that I would make is that when that happened a couple seasons ago, no one could really explain it. It didn't make a lot of sense. The pieces didn't look like they fit. It just kind of happened. Now, though, like, the pieces do fit. Like, Lowry and DeRozan have played together long enough that whatever their limitations, they've figured it out on offense. Valanciunas has found a groove with those guys for a while now where, he seems content to not get the touches that maybe his shooting percentages would dictate. And then the bench unit is like a really well put together foursome. Terrence Ross and Patrick Patterson, now that those guys have come around and they're knocking down their shots, Patterson's playing the best defense of his career. Joseph is a terrific team concept defender and is unbelievable chasing other guards around screens and recovering if he gets caught. Biyombo's there for his defense. And Terrence Ross is, like, if you want to talk about you don't recognize the Raptors, there's the guy you point to. Yeah. And, it's a credit to Dwane Casey. When DeMarre Carroll went down, everyone was kind of like, what the heck, when James Johnson got vaulted into the starting lineup. Yeah. And, had you told people at the time that when he went down, Norman Powell would be next up, people would have probably thought it was weird. But the reason that Dwane Casey did that is he wanted everyone to have role certainty and role consistency, and that's allowed that same 4 guys to come off the bench together in the exact same rotations, and the same guys playing the small forward role, the minutes shift around. But in terms of everyone else, no one else's role really changes. Nobody else's minutes really change. And that's been tough to stick with at times, but they've stuck to it and it's helped. And I think that's probably why, you look at this team right now and what's their biggest weakness. I think it's the fact that Scola is still starting and he's been a bit of a problem for a couple weeks now, and him and Valanciunas have been a defensive problem for a long time. But when everything else is, kind of happening because of chemistry and because of familiarity and momentum, there's really not a good argument to mess with that.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Scola in the context of Markieff Morris in a bit, because he's still on the block and all. But you just look at the bench right now. You mentioned the 4 guys, Patterson, Ross, Joseph, and you can add Biyombo to that one. If that's your 6 to 9 rotation, those are all guys that are playing excellent defense right now. So when Dwane Casey does mix and match or goes to the bench entirely, he doesn't see a defensive drop off at all. In fact, he's seeing an upshift in defense, which is not expected.
Yeah, and it's something I tweeted out earlier tonight is that this Lowry plus 4 bench guys unit that's been so dominant for a large stretch of really the whole season so far, it's not like that unit is just like, oh, that's when Ross and Patterson are knocking down their threes or something like that. No, that group's shooting like 37% on threes when they play together, so it's not unsustainable at all. They're just killing teams defensively. I have the rating here somewhere. So that fivesome, Lowry with the bench unit, is giving up 78.9 points per 100 possessions. Yep. And I know you don't love that those stats, but that's over 159 minutes now. That's their 3rd most used lineup, and that defense would make the Spurs look like, I don't know, pick your worst defensive team ever, like the 70s Nuggets. That is an incredible defensive rating to hold up for that amount of time. And like you said, it speaks to every guy in that unit is a strong defensive player, and with the exception of maybe Ross, those guys are defense first players. And yeah, bench scoring seemed like it might be an issue when the season started because none of those guys can really create for themselves. But the way Casey staggers his rotations, has Lowry out with them a lot, it has DeRozan out with them a fair amount. It's been good, man. There's a small concern, I guess, that when other teams' rotations tighten up in the playoffs, that group isn't going to be against opposing benches as much. But in the meantime, that's it's super encouraging that the 9-man rotation is all, assuming Carroll comes back in Powell's spot just fine, the 9-man rotation is really clicking, and you're not going to play more guys than that in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned DeMar Carroll, who's like almost a forgotten man. Like watching this game, I didn't even think he was on the Raptors. He's almost like faded from memory, and when he comes back, it's gonna be like, who's this guy? But talk about Terrence Ross for a bit, man. Obviously, he's a polarizing figure, or not anymore, I guess. But his defense, even though it hasn't been locked down, like he's never gonna be that type of guy. It's like you see him like poking a steal from the back and then running up the court, and Lowry founds him on the break. He's done 2 or 3 of these things in the Pistons game, and even against the Blazers, he did that. Like where he may not be locking his own man down, but he's poking enough balls away, getting enough deflections where you can actually term him an active defender, and that's a far cry from where he was in, like, say, November, December.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to such a huge change in his approach too, because those aren't the type of plays that come from just being naturally athletic. Those are the type of plays that come from having great awareness out there. And when Ross has struggled defensively, it hasn't been that his athleticism isn't there or that he's not quick enough, because those things are always there. It's been that, he falls asleep when he's off the ball, or he doesn't, it doesn't seem like he's paying great attention or anything. So if he's getting all of those opportunity steals and making those opportunity plays, that to me suggests he's far more locked in on that end. And you said that Ross is never going to be a lockdown guy. That's probably true if you're, in terms of just sheer probabilities. But he was a guy who, when he entered the league, with his length at the 2 and his quickness to be able to switch onto some ones, he was a guy that, the 3-and-D label got thrown around.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not to the point yet where you'd call him a great defender, but he's shown for like 2 months now that he can be solid. And really, the Raptors only need him to be able to come in and be solid enough that, he can guard the tougher guy when he's alongside DeRozan, and strong enough that when they go to the all-bench second unit or the four-man bench second unit, he can slide to the three with the 2 point guards out there and, not give anything up. He's not the biggest guy, but he can do a lot on that end of the floor.
I feel that when we talk about Ross, like his defense, we got to talk in the position context, because I think he's too slight of weight. Basically, he's too light to be defending threes.
Sure, but look at what we just talked about with that 5-man unit. He's playing the three in that unit. He's out there with Lowry and Joseph, and they've been great. And you have to pick your spots with it, of course. He's not like had he spent large time on Marcus Morris tonight, that would have been a bit of an issue, because Morris is a bigger three that can back him down, and he certainly can't switch on to fours. But there aren't enough threes out there that can really kill him to be like, oh, you can't ever play him at the three. The Raptors' best lineup plays Ross at the three, and when him and DeRozan are out there together, as they have been a great deal with Karl out, they switch pretty seamlessly, and one's not the two, one's not the three. They just, it's a lot of cross switching. It's a lot of picking up whoever in transition based on where you are. And that's not to say he's, even if he ends up being a good defender at the two and an okay defender at the three, that's still great. That's what you need out of him, and that's, better than where anyone thought he'd be in November.
Yeah. Let's switch to the other guy that got drafted alongside.
You don't want to just talk about Terrence Ross? That's kind of Will's lane.
I think whoever held on to the Terrence Ross stock, I think it was Andrew, who didn't sell a single share, looks like a genius right now, because it's paying off. It's like the Google stock right now, and looks good. But I do want to talk about JV, man, because I thought he had a pretty solid game today. 7 for 9 shooting again. Hesitated on a couple of jumpers, Blake, but did knock them down in the end.
Yeah, that one free throw jumper was hilarious. He just held it forever. It's funny. He's showing encouraging signs. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's maybe because, Raptors, I don't know if Valanciunas seems like the kind of guy who would insulate himself from this kind of talk, but, you hear all the time when people are down on Terrence Ross, oh, they could have had Andre Drummond. But they drafted Valanciunas the year prior. He just wasn't there yet. I wonder if he gets up for the Drummond matchup, or if it's just random, or Drummond is just really not good defensively one-on-one, because Valanciunas is shooting something like over 60% against Drummond over a good deal of meetings in their career now. He really seems to get up for it. I thought he did a really nice job on Drummond in the post today, while also manning the pick and roll effectively without giving up the driving lane to sell out onto Drummond. I thought he had a good two-way game.
I find that JV gets up for any big center he goes up against. It's just Brook Lopez who burns him. And just looking at his shooting stats, man, last year between the 10 to 16 foot range, he was 39%. This year he's 48%. Last year between 16 and the 3-point line, he was 39. This year he's 48%. So there's a significant uptick in his mid-range shooting. And sometimes you make fun of his jumper, the way he releases it, his hesitations, but there's statistical improvement in the way his mid-range game is going. And that's got to be summertime work put in, and that's got to be, doing credit to Dwane Casey for encouraging him to shoot all that. But that's kind of opening up his game as well.
Yeah, and that's really important. When we're talking about a center shooting from that range, we're talking about small samples, but it's very clearly better. And that's been a year-over-year thing, and that's big for Valanciunas. Because, he's got that pump fake that almost nobody bites on anymore. But if he starts hitting down those mid-range shots and those longer twos, then his man's going to get up on him more. And he does have enough of a face-up game for that to matter if guys get up on him and start biting on the fake. So that's great. And it also is great if he can hit those down enough that the Raptors can use him as an occasional pick and pop instead of just a dive man. That's only going to lead to him getting more touches, which is, if you look at the Raptors offense, that's one area they could probably stand to improve their shot distribution, is getting Valanciunas a few more looks. And the more he can do and the more confidence he gets in that shot and the more confidence he can give his guys, those touches should only come.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about what you alluded to earlier is Luis Scola, who's now appears to be a bit of a problem, as you stated. He's been struggling for the last little while. Today he did get that. Did he get a block at the 3-point line today? I thought I saw one.
Was it a Tolliver one? Yeah, I think Tolliver pump faked, Scola kind of flew by, and then Tolliver was slow on his second release,
Yeah.
and Scola got a piece of it. I think that's the plan.
Yeah. So he's I'm looking at his his games, like 1 for 3, 2 for 5, 2 for 3, 2 for 5. It's typical Luis Scola games. It's not like he's been made to look like any worse on defense than he actually is. I don't think he's been struggling to the point where people are making out to be. He's probably the least effective starter, maybe. But I don't see him struggling, to be honest. Like, do you see something wrong in his game over the last, I don't know, 10, 12 games?
No, I don't think it's a Scola issue necessarily as where he fits with the team. And we just talked about all this continuity stuff, and we talked about how role consistency has been important for this team, and it's absolutely true. Come playoff time, you want your best guys out there the most, though. And the Scola Valanciunas front line has struggled a little bit, especially defensively. It never made sense on paper. The Raptors are getting outscored narrowly when those two share the floor together in what's been a very large sample now. And the Raptors in general have been like significantly better when Scola hits the bench. Part of that is the bench unit dominating, and the starting units, no matter who gets thrown out there, being a bit of an issue. But it's not. Thing is, it's not a Scola thing. Like Scola, like you said, is doing Scola things. He's putting up Scola numbers, even in the last 7 games where he's only shooting like 37%. He's still knocking down those occasional corner threes. He's still grabbing a few rebounds and making a few of those weirdo veteran plays where he sniffs out a trap in the corner that nobody else seems to see, and it leads to a turnover, or makes a pass that nobody really saw, and it swings around the perimeter and basically, reinvigorates a possession. He does those little Luis Scola things that only a 35, 36-year-old veteran could do. He's just a weird fit next to Valanciunas. He's a more natural fit next to Biyombo, and in the second unit, if you're still concerned about the second unit creating for themselves, he can create a little bit from the elbows. With how good the second unit is going, you probably don't make the change. There's not really an impetus to do it. And again, it's not like Scola hasn't been bad. He's just Scola, and against certain matchups, that's really tough defensively. Detroit's a tough one for him defensively, where they play rangier fours. Ersan Ilyasova kind of ate his lunch today a little bit, and we've seen that, more often than not lately against teams that play a pair of bigs that can both stretch it out a little bit. Phoenix gave him some issues. I think he was fine against Denver, but the game against Detroit, Washington is a team he's struggled with, I think.
Yeah, certainly if you put a lengthier 4 on him, like he's gonna struggle. Like Indiana always struggles against Indiana. But one thing about his game, man, 9 of the last 10 games he's hit a 3, and it's been a constant theme this season that he actually is becoming a legit 3-point threat. I mean, I don't. Do you see teams like coming out to check him now, or is it still
no?
Like, let's go,
so
let's shoot?
This is the thing, and I saw Will have a conversation with someone on Twitter earlier about Luis Scola spacing the floor. Now, Luis Scola is shooting like 44% on threes this year, which is awesome. He is still not what you would call a floor spacer, because floor spacing isn't about hitting threes. It's about bending the defense and stretching them out to provide more room for DeRozan and Lowry on their drives to the rim. Right now, teams are still treating Luis Scola as if that's a show-me shot, where they'll give it to him, and if Luis Scola knocks down a 3, hey, Luis Scola knocked down a 3, which makes sense because he had hit 10 in his career before this season. At some point, that might tip to where teams are staying a little closer to home on him. But if I were coaching on an opposing team, he's hit 43s now in 51 games, and it's a good percentage, but it's not a real high volume. It might go away at some point. Like it's very corner dependent. If I'm choosing between sending some help on a DeRozan drive or a Lowry drive and shading off of Scola a little bit, I'm choosing to shade off of Scola a little bit, because DeRozan and Lowry are the guys that you gear up for on the defensive end of the ball. So credit to Scola for knocking down those shots. It doesn't make spacing any less tight, but as long as he keeps knocking them down, then that's still a win for the Raptors if teams collapse off him.
So Patrick Patterson gets to space the floor at 34% 3-point shooting, but Luis Scola at 43% doesn't get to do it. Stats are weird, eh?
It's not stats though. This is a complete argument against stats. Stats would say that Scola is the floor spacer and Patterson is not, but the reality is that, Patterson takes way more threes and has a much longer track record of hitting them, so defenses stick to Patterson. They stick to him in the pick and pop. They, those corner fades that he does, they pay him a little more attention than they do Scola, and that's, it's exactly against stats.
Yeah,
Stats would say
Blake,
that teams.
I just tried to make a joke. That's
Okay, sorry, man.
Okay. Hey, speaking of an awkward moment of silence, let's talk about ball streams.
Oh boy,
Yep.
pour one out.
Yep. It happened. Finally happened after about 3 years in service. Ballstreams.com appears to be shut down. If you didn't know what Ballstreams was, it was a website where you paid basically $100 a year and got to see any game, anytime, no blackout restrictions, home
Live
feed,
PVR.
away feed, live PVR, everything. Basically, one of the greatest sites ever created, and it seems to have shut down. And hopefully they come back, man. But it doesn't look like it. Has been 3 days. There's some issues with DNS records and all that. And but you tried to give me your NBA.com account, and goddamn, I could not find the freaking login button.
Now, I will say I've never used ball streams because I only use the completely legal channels through which to consume NBA's media through NBA sanctioned channels only. The NBA offers such a great digital product. I would never need to go anywhere else.
That's Blake paying for his All-Star Game press pass right there.
Yeah. I don't know why you had an issue. I logged myself out and then logged back in and it looked fine. I think, I know that you're a very techie guy for your age and it's like a big part of your livelihood.
Okay.
But you showed, that was an old man moment. Like I felt like I was emailing with my dad.
I sent you screenshots. I could not see the login button. Did you see it there?
Yeah. I saw it in the second screenshot you showed me. There was a sign-in button where your name had been before.
All right. Okay. All right. So we're not gonna talk about because that sign-in button Blake leads to something else.
This is good. We should keep this going. We're talking very visual things that the listener can't see on this audio medium.
To be continued, Blake. To be continued. So ode to Ballstream. Sorry to see you go. You were a good friend. Hey, I was assigned a D League recap game a couple days ago. Yeah, it was against I don't even know who. And they lost. But I get to saw Bruno play again for a bit, and he was like 3 for 12 shooting. I have no problem with that, whatever. But it does feel like the Raptors view him more as a 3-point shooter on offense more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that recap, honestly, man, it felt like Anthony Bennett playing a D League game, reading that recap.
What? I think I gave enough effort as it warranted.
Exactly. That you treated it like a D League recap.
Yeah.
You caught a bad Bruno game. The game before, the Friday night game, was actually maybe the best Bruno's looked in terms of two-way games. Prior to the one you covered on Saturday, he had been red hot from outside. His three-point shooting marks up to 34.4% on the season, which isn't where it needs to be for him to be.
Is that translatable to the NBA? His three-point shooting, like, is that something you can kind of like carry over?
Yeah, I would think so because that shot is unblockable. Yeah. It's a good looking shot. You're not going to suggest that whatever percentage he hit in the D League right now he's going to hit in the NBA, but a fair number of those looks are contested. They're catch and shoot and off the dribble. He has a nice mix of that. He has a nice little step back move to get it off. And then he's so long and the jump shot looks nice. So it's tough to block. I don't. Three shooting is something that a lot of teams and scouts and player development people believe can be developed over time. So the fact that he's hitting 34.4% and it's the first reliable skill he's demonstrated is encouraging for his long-term potential shooting the ball. I think he's doing some other things well that people should be encouraged by. Obviously, he's not anywhere near ready to be contributing to the Raptors yet, which a year and a half after getting drafted is going to rub some the wrong way. But, his defense has improved a lot. His decision making, especially in terms of help defense, he's playing the 3 and the 4. Everyone sees him as a small forward. I think long term, if he puts on any weight at all, he's probably a 4 because he's 7 feet tall. Mm-hmm. It's been encouraging. This year was all about getting him minutes and getting him more experience, and he is, showing the benefit of that. His awareness has gone up on. Oh wow! Sorry, his awareness has gone up on both ends of the floor. George Karl's fired.
Yeah, I think there was some rumors that it might happen today.
Yeah, Mark Stein tweeted out while we've been on here that ESPN sources say the Kings are going ahead with a coaching change and will fire George Karl in the coming days. That's a bit of a segue.
We can stop the Bruno talk for a second, man. But
yeah, well, I was going to segue into the Knicks fired Derek Fisher today. That Raptors pick that they own is looking better by the day.
It's like, I mean, in both instances, it was so crazy because in one case you have your all-star franchise player feuding with a coach, which I don't even know how it went on this long, even when when they publicly say they don't like each other. And in the Knicks case, Derek Fisher was like obvious choice number 2 from the get-go, and the fact that he survived that long was just Phil Jackson's good graces because he played under him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that or that you just, when you're in a rebuilding or retooling phase, like you give a coach more than a year to figure things out. From a Raptors perspective, making a coaching change in the middle of the year while Carmelo Anthony is dealing with more knee soreness and had to go for another MRI, that's encouraging. The Nuggets have been playing better of late, but the Knicks, they're in a bit of a slide and should finish in the bottom 10, maybe even like the bottom 6, the way things are going right now. And the Raptors, of course, get the worst of the Knicks or Nuggets pick after the lottery. So it's a complete tangent from where we're going, but it reminded me to mention Derek Fisher because that's good news for the Raptors.
And I just checked the Raptors Republic pick checker between the Nuggets and the Knicks, and currently we are slated to receive pick number 9 from New York. The Knicks are at 23 and 31, and the Nuggets are at 21 and 32. So the worst pick is actually the Knicks at 9. So Nuggets at 7 would be nice, but 9 looks pretty good, man.
Yeah, it would be. That's a huge trade chip. I know people love Jamal Murray. I'm a big Jamal Murray fan too. I really believe in his offensive potential in the NBA. And some mocks have him sliding out of the top 8 now. Forget it. That is such a huge trade chip, and this is the biggest window into the conference finals that the Raptors have ever potentially had. You use that pick if you can improve your team right now, because you might not have another chance to get into the conference finals. I'd love Jamal Murray to be in a Toronto Raptors uniform, but not at the expense of a potential upgrade this season. There's any of those picks, none of them are tied down.
So let's talk about one of the upgrades mentioned. We talked about it a bit earlier, but Markieff Morris is on the block here. And like obviously he's had a bit of an up and down season with the Phoenix Suns. There's some issues with the franchise and all that, and he was struggling to start the year under Jeff Hornacek. But since he's been pushed out, his numbers have been pretty good. With Watson as the coach, it's 20 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 5 assists, 43% shooting, 44% from 3. That's up from 28% with Hornacek there. Does this guy do enough, or does he bring much more than Scola or Patterson? Or let's talk about Patterson, because does he bring more than Patterson for you to include him in a swap with the Suns and give up that pick we talked about?
Here's the thing: you look at his last couple games. He has done things in those games that you look at the whole season. Patrick Patterson has been better than Markieff Morris this season, and there's no question about it. Morris has pouted his way through the entire year. He hasn't tried on defense. His shot selection's been horrible. Every advanced metric agrees he's been one of the worst players in the league. And then you look at the last 3 games, Patrick Patterson is never on his best day against an injured Sixers team going to put up 30, 11, and 6, or probably 17, 7, and 8. And Morris, when he's locked in, can be just as good a defender, a different defender than Patrick Patterson, but overall just as good. I don't think he'd be as quick and as easy to switch with and as great a team concept defender, but I think in terms of bulkier fours and then straight face-up defense, he could be as good as Patterson. He could do more offensively. I don't think he's as good a shooter. He had that hot rookie year as a three-point shooter, and the fact that his brother can hit threes, I think, kind of carries over to his reputation as a potential floor spacer. I don't like the jumper that much, the way it looks. I don't think he's shown that range for a long enough amount of time to reliably pencil that in. But he can do a lot more creating for himself, facing up. Passing is a huge advantage he has over Patrick Patterson. The way Patterson attacks those closeouts and then tries to dish or hit those floaters that everyone gets so frustrated at, that's something Morris has in his arsenal and can keep the offense flowing through him. If he came off the bench, he could prop up the second unit offense. Failing that, you could stagger Lowry and DeRozan's rest so that Morris could take on a little bit of the extra load for them. I don't think on talent. Here's the thing. If you asked Raptors fans or an analyst in the offseason, would you trade Patrick Patterson in a pick for Markieff Morris? Almost everyone would have said yes. This is he's the same age as Patterson. He's on a very affordable deal for 3 more years. He's shown more on pure talent than Patterson. Where it swings Patterson's way is things like consistency. being a good locker room guy, being a character guy and a team defender, knowing your role, those kind of things. So it gets into a complicated spot where in the offseason, you make that deal because what really matters is increasing the total amount of talent on your team, figuring out fit later, and just making sure you have a high ceiling. Now it gets complicated because you're taking away from a team that's already shown success, and you're adding an element that could make the team worse or could make the team better. I think Masai Ujiri has invested heavily in organizational culture and having good people in the locker room, partially for a situation like this where an asset hits the market at a depreciated value and you can get a talent that you wouldn't have been able to get for that price not that long ago. The question now is whether or not he makes a deal like that in the middle of the season when it's a pretty big dice roll. I would think Dwane Casey and with Morris being close with Kyle Lowry, it would work. I just don't know if it's a gamble they're willing to take. Talent-wise, it upgrades you, but I don't know. There's so much that goes into a move like that. As the Raptors, nobody knows that better than Raptors fans what can happen unexpectedly in a chemistry experiment over the last 3 years. What do you think? Do you think the talent upgrade is enough, or you want to hold steady if it's going to risk, making the team worse potentially?
I think if I asked you this question 2 months ago, forget about the off season, like 2 months ago when Patrick Patterson was down in the dumps and doing nothing, and basically his confidence was shot. He wasn't even attempting threes because he was too scared to take them. You would have done this deal. Yes, Blake, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if you...
See, sorry, I shouldn't say yes. I'm in a weird spot where I've kind of been wishy-washy when I've analyzed this every time it's come up, or when I've gotten argued, or sorry, not argued, when I've gotten asked in mailbag posts. I don't think we can really evaluate it well without knowing more about, I don't know Morris at all, and I don't know, how much Patterson means to, and that's a cop-out because we can never really know. I think on a pure talent and my philosophy about how you build a roster, yeah, you make that deal. I make it 2 months ago. I make it in the offseason. I probably make it now because you need talent to win. And if you're going to have any puncher's chance against the Cavs, you need to up your talent level.
There you go, man. I think you kind of hit it on the head. Is you got to picture yourself in the Eastern Conference Final against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you wonder who's going to help you more in that situation, Patrick Patterson or Markieff Morris. And the answer there is that he just matches up better with Tristan Thompson and what have you. The other thing is that I don't think Patrick Patterson, we talked about his floor spacing. I actually don't think teams respect his floor spacing as much as we think they do. I think offensively he's playing better of late, but I think overall from an offensive standpoint, Morris will give you more. If his 3-point shooting doesn't have to be 44%, but if he's even at 33, 34%, that's basically Patrick Patterson for you. So at that point, what does Patrick Patterson do better than Morris? And I'd say he's a better defender in terms of covering a lot of ground. Patterson's one of those guys who just always scampers around. He's covering the block, he's covering outside, he's always active defensively. Whereas Morris is a guy who basically stays in a particular zone and tries to defend that. So that's one thing you might lose on the defensive side. But other than that, I think it's a wash. The question really is it the pick that you're willing to give up to get him? And I don't know enough about the draft or how deep it is, or if you even think about that to say, we'll do the 1-for-1 swap and you can take our other pick or our actual pick, but not the Knicks one. I think that's going to be the key thing here.
Yeah, it's we're going to see. There's, some people have floated the idea of getting Morris without losing Patterson, which is
it's fantasy, man. I just don't see it happening.
I think to a team that's trying to rebuild their locker room and is going to have some cap space this summer for the Suns, Patterson's affordable year next year. That deal is going to be so below market by the time this offseason's done. A year of Patterson at $6.1 million, that's going to be attractive. And the fact that he's, a good dude who's been in a couple different situations and can, bring that locker room element, I think that's important to teams. Whereas if you're sending out, Scola and James Johnson, well, they're going to buy Scola out. He's been there before. They probably like him, but they have no use for him. He'd ask for a buyout. Yeah. And something I've been trying to hammer home to people when I do these trade scenario posts and stuff is the less you send out for players, the more you have to send out for picks. So if you want to hang on to that Knicks pick so dearly, then Patterson's got to go in almost any trade scenario you come up with.
So do you think his off-the-court problems, two questions. Do you think his off-the-court problems actually reduce his market value, or is the
Yes.
NBA just told? Oh, do you think so? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got a pending assault charge, which, threatens to lead to a potential suspension if he's found guilty, or missed practices or games for court cases and stuff like that. It also, if it's true, speaks to, the character of the player, which you don't want a guy that's a risk for something like that in your, you don't want to invest heavily in him. And then I also think, character issues really do scare some teams off. If you're a young team and you're trying to build a locker room with a new coach and some young players, you don't really want that element that could sour guys or be a combustible element. If you're a locker room that already has one or two of those guys, maybe you don't want to add another one, which is why I think the Raptors have done well to kind of insulate themselves from that, where it's hard to think of a player in a situation where someone couldn't come in and fit pretty well with what the Raptors are doing. Casey's been there with a great deal of continuity. The whole organization values people. Lowry and James Johnson are both examples of perceived malcontents who have kind of found their way. I think there's a lot going for the Raptors in that regard. And those things are all great because they're great anyway. You want guys like that in your organization. You want an organization that functions that way. But it also gives you a chance to get a depressed asset at a discount.
Yeah. So you just answered my second question too. I guess actually the official question was, you think Masai Ujiri is a one to because he's all about chemistry and getting the good guys in and Giants for Africa and all that stuff. Like, you think he's a guy who might take a chance on Markieff Morris?
Yeah, I think look at what happened with Lowry when Ujiri first came in and the conversations they had and the turnaround that Lowry had. I think that, he brought back James Johnson after James Johnson had basically, moped his way off the team 2 years prior. It's he's a guy who I think believes in second chances and believes in the strength of what he's built. The question isn't necessarily can the Raptors do it and be okay with it. It's then, is it worth giving up a first round pick? Is it worth subtracting Patterson from that environment that you've created also? Because you can kind of only make that move to leverage your organizational culture once. You can't bring in, you can't try it with Morris and then try it with someone else and keep sending out good character guys to bring in risks and still, survive. This is a move in that regard, and with that Knicks pick, you only get this move once.
The other thing you got to think about is you got DeMario Carroll out right now, and if you do send Patterson out, you still have DeMario Carroll there, who's similar to Patrick Patterson in a lot of senses, where he's an active defender, good 3-point shooter. So in a sense that given what you have today after beating the Pistons, sending Patterson out, getting Markieff Morris in, and getting DeMario Carroll back, you wouldn't really be missing too much, would you?
Well, I mean, there's another way to look at that, though, and some people who are either more risk-averse or are big Patterson fans might say, well, you don't even need to make the Morris move because what you have right now is really good, and DeMario Carroll has given you almost zero this season.
Yeah.
So that's another, you look at a player who's coming back late February, early March as a deadline acquisition. The Raptors are 35-16 with almost nothing from Carroll.
Except like Morris has that block game that the Raptors really don't have right now. Like that's one thing he would bring that we just don't currently possess.
Oh, what I'm saying is he could bring a lot that the Raptors don't currently possess. He just hasn't shown it. Yeah. He's shown it for flashes, but he's mostly been hurt. I think that's an argument to be made. But at the counter to that would just be, okay, yeah, you're making that addition, and why not do more? It's this is the thing though. Come trade time, and I'm guilty of it too. We might, as if fans in general, like a large, zoom out the royal we might underestimate the impact of chemistry. We don't know. So maybe the team looks at it and trying to work Carroll back in is going to be enough of a chemistry experiment on its own. I don't know. Those things work in weird ways where you can't explain them and you don't know why things happen or don't happen. I'd be rolling the dice to do what I can to make sure I have a chance in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I think we agree there. I think you got to roll the dice. You got to look at your ceiling, look at the potential problems, obviously. But in this East, which is I'd say there to be had if it weren't for the Cavs, you got to bulk up a little. But I guess the real question is, how can we orchestrate a trade would somehow bring Sonny Weems back.
Oh, I know DeMar DeRozan would love that.
They're buddies still?
Yeah. They said Sonny said
Holly
McKenzie had a great catch up with Sonny Weems. Then we get Ed Davis back from the Trailblazers. Young guns in full effect.
Imagine if we got Sonny Weems back, and that would entice DeMar DeRozan to take less on the market and stay in Toronto. Wow.
Oh, wow. Mind blown.
Wow.
He's got to have a friend who's better at basketball, right?
Sonny Weems is all right, man. There was some talk way back when DeMar DeRozan and Weems were on the Raptors together that Weems might have had the better potential.
And then he went to literally Siberia for 4 years.
Did he? Yeah, he did. Wasn't it via Turkey or something, or was he direct to Siberia?
I don't know. He was playing in Russia right before he came back. So,
hey, let's talk All-Star, man. So
okay. So let's only touch it quickly though, because mine and Will's podcast on Friday is going to be all All-Star.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, by the way, so podcast plug time. If you like Raptors Weekly Extra is there on Fridays by Blake and Will. That's a nice podcast, man. It fills up my commute. It's always a good listen. Listener, do check it out. Fridays of Raptors Weekly Extra with Blake and Will. And
if you like either of those podcasts and you want to support the site and the content we provide, patreon.com/RaptorsRepublic.
Yeah, we have to plug that more. We have to plug that more. Guys, open up your wallets, patreon.com/RaptorsRepublic. And I don't know. We'll do a formal post asking for money, basically. But yeah, go to the site and give us some cash.
Feed Zarar's children.
Yeah. Okay, so we both have press passes. We're fortunate enough to have press passes. It's your first time at an All-Star game press pass, obviously.
Yeah.
What are you the most looking forward to? Like what
the
event?
Dunk contest.
Really?
Yeah.
Not me, man. Not me. 3-point shootout all the way. I have never looked forward to the dunk contest since like maybe the year after Vince Carter when he disappointed when the NBA disappointed. And since then, it's always been about the 3-point shootout. Way more entertaining in every respect. I can't.
Here's the thing. The best thing that I could imagine happening is if we're in the 3-point shootout final and Steph Curry clears the first 2 racks, what the vibe is going to be in there. Like if he has a shot at a perfect round in the final. Like I can't imagine any part of the weekend getting buzzier than that. Just Curry heating up in the 3-point contest. And he's never won one.
Where are we sitting, man? Do you know?
I don't know. I haven't seen the. We'll find out. I think Thursday.
Do I have to sit or can I just like wander the court like while they're doing this?
Oh, you won't be able to wander the court.
Oh, I won't be able to wander the court
because it's probably gonna be heavy security down there.
But I got a press pass.
I know, but I don't think press pass will get you courtside for this particular event.
No way.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never been to one before, but I'd assume we're gonna be in the like 20 rows up in the 100 level.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
It's my first time being a reporter at a game, even though I won't be doing much reporting.
No, you're gonna. I was looking at the schedule today, and I wrote out like my schedule, and there were only like 2 times really where one of us will have to go to something and one of us the other thing. There aren't a lot of overlap things. Okay, so
we'll take that one offline, Blake, because I get the sense you're about to assign me some tasks.
No, I wasn't going to assign you. This is actually an interesting conversation. If people might be interested to see how we come to this conclusion. Do you want the celebrity game or the Rising Stars game on Friday?
What do you mean? Do I want to watch it or do I want to like report on it?
Well, if you go to it, like with our press pass, you have to write it. Like you have to throw a recap up or something, or get some quotes after or something.
Quotes after? I'm out, man. That's not gonna happen.
I don't know. What are you gonna do then with this press pass?
I'm just gonna watch the games and just chill out and take a selfie with Kobe if I can. That's my whole goal here.
Oh, I doubt very much you'll get a selfie with Kobe.
No, you don't think so? So selfie with Anthony Bennett hawking popcorn in the 300?
Yeah. No.
Is he gonna be there? You think he's gonna be there?
Anthony Bennett?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. He might be there to like party or whatever. I don't think he's. This is honestly the first I've ever thought of Anthony Bennett at All-Star Weekend. I can't imagine caring about something less.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll defer the All-Star talk to the Friday podcast. What else is there to talk about, man? Anything else? I think I've run out my agenda items.
Yeah, we can wrap it up, man.
All right. Sounds good.
It's a day late anyway, so if we keep this like 40 minutes, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Will and I'll be back before you know it.
Right. So I just want to just check on what Andre Drummond shot today. 3 for 8. No hack on Andre Drummond today. I guess there was no need to, eh?
No, the game flow didn't really dictate it. I mean, I'm for that strategy when the numbers suggest it's useful. I don't have any like moral issue with it. I'd actually have a moral issue with the Raptors not doing it if it was providing a statistical advantage. So, yeah, that's fine. Bring on the Pistons in a playoff series, by the way.
Yeah, eh? Is that what happens if you start the playoffs today? Is that where?
No, before this game it was.
Yeah. So right now it's the Bulls. Oh my God! Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like finishing second in the conference and facing the Bulls in the first round. Oh my fuck! That would be the worst. The worst
Bulls
possible outcome. That's like worse than the 3-6 jersey back with Carter.
Yeah, that can't happen.
You don't think so?
It can, but it better not.
But it certainly looks like the Raptors are kind of cozying into that second spot, though. Like 2 games back at Cleveland, 5 games ahead of Boston.
It's theirs, man. Like
it's theirs,
you've got 31 games left. You're gonna get caught by 5 games. You only had your schedule's already been road heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna skew home after the All-Star break. I don't know, man. You're gonna get Damari Carroll back. I think the second seed is theirs. 5 games is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like to give you an idea, the Knicks are closer to a playoff spot than the Celtics are to the Raptors, and the Celtics are the 3 seed.
Right. That's some good math for you. So that was actually my next thing. I was like, you just look at the East playoff picture right now. You got Pistons in the 8th spot, and you got the Hornets and Magic in 9 and 10, and the Wizards at 11. Any of those 3 you see sneaking in here? Hornets, Magic, you think the Wizards have a run left in them?
No, I think the Wizards should sell off pieces and focus on next year.
Really? What kind of pieces?
It's John Wall, and that's it. I think you could get a little bit for Jared Dudley. Yeah, I don't know what else.
What has
Maybe
gone
someone
wrong
wants
there?
Gary Neal. A lot of injuries, man. A lot of injuries. Nene, Chris Humphries, Allen Anderson, Gary Neal, Bradley Beal, all those guys have missed a bunch of time. It's been John Wall alone pretty much the whole season.
Yeah, what's his contract look like?
John Wall?
Yeah. Is he signed up for a long time?
He's locked up for a while, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see the Hornets getting in. I don't know at whose expense.
Mm-hmm.
I would think Detroit and maybe Indiana are most susceptible of the teams in the playoff picture right now. I think Charlotte's really good. They got Michael Kidd-Gilchrist back now. Nick Batum's firmly off the trade block if he was ever on it. They're only a half game out. They're good on both ends of the floor. They're really well coached. I think I picked them to make the playoffs. Oh no, I picked them to be the first team out of the playoffs before the season. Mm-hmm. And I think if anyone's going to sneak in now, it's them.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a couple of tweets, man.
They would terrify me, by the way, as a playoff opponent.
Who?
The Hornets.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Just because the Raptors can never ever beat them.
No. At least I don't have Gerald Henderson, so that's good. So it's just I just did a search for Karl and Casey on Twitter to see what people are saying about.
Oh boy.
About that. So there's one dude who goes, and Dwane Casey has got to the point where George Karl being available doesn't interest me.
Yeah, there you go. Casey, the 5th longest tenured head coach in basketball right now.
Oh yeah, God.
Teflon.
Yeah, but still no extension though.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes sense? So you think if he gets 54 wins, loses in the first round, what does Blake Murphy do?
Well, I evaluate. I take some time. I talk to the people in my organization. The biggest thing is I gauge the interest in available head coaches of potentially coming to Toronto, because with coaching more than any other spot on the roster, people have this grass is greener mentality that's just like not true. In a lot of cases, there aren't a lot of great coaches out there. It's basically Pop and Carlisle, then maybe Stevens, and a bunch of guys who have narrow edges over each other or do some things better than others and other things worse. Casey is a good 82-game coach. He's a good long-term scheme coach. He's this offense, as much as he's not an offensive guy, has been good almost every year under him. The defense looks good now that it's kind of in his image. I'm not saying that Casey is, a top 5 coach. He's almost certainly not. His late game management leaves something to be desired. His playbook's not as thin as everyone makes it out to be, but he does lean on the ISOs or whatever. And he's a little slow for in-game adjustments, and as we've seen in playoff series, game-to-game adjustments. So he can't really be evaluated on that last point until we see him in the playoffs again this year. But I'm not of the mind that there are like 20 coaches out there better than Casey raring to take this job. So the first, that's why I thought it made sense to let him play out the year on the lame duck, because then Ujiri can see who's available and who that upgrade would be. It's like saying, should we trade Patrick Patterson without knowing who you're going to get back? In a vacuum, you can't ask that question. You need to know who's available and who could replace him.
Yeah, I think the biggest complaint about Casey right now isn't really his coaching. It's about his handling of Kyle Lowry's minutes 38 again. But I don't want to get into that again. But generally, I think fans right now are kind of moaning on that more than his playbook. But fans always need something to moan about, so there you go.
Yeah, and that's totally a thing. And I am more pro Casey than most and more minutes cautious than most. So you can both of those things can exist together.
How do you sleep at night? How does it? It's hard.
I don't sleep very much. Yeah. Is the thing.
All right, so I think that kind of wraps it up. Blake, man, thanks for coming on and giving us your insights. You can find Blake on pretty much every radio station in the GTA. He's on there.
7 o'clock Friday morning on the Dean Blundell Show on Fan 590.
So it's on our SoundCloud page as well, the clips from there. And once again, the Raptors Republic offers a bunch of podcasts. You got this one, you got Raptors Weekly Extra on Friday with Blake and Will, and you also got the Talking Raptors guys giving you the culture aspect of things. Some people really hate them for some reason, but I love Talking Raptors and their infatuation with Drake and all that.
Are you coming out to their show tomorrow?
Dude, I've been on I'll be honest with the listener because I have been doing this podcast for a long time, but I went on an absolute bender a couple of days ago without telling my wife, and she's still mad at me, so I'm kind of...
all right, it sounds like I'll be there solo.
I don't know. I'll see what I can do. But yeah, so when's the show? 9:30 you said? Where is it?
Yeah, 9:30 at Comedy Bar, Bloor and Ossington.
There you go, Bloor and Ossington Comedy Bar, Tuesday night, 9:30. Blake's going to be there. The Talking Raptors guys are going to be there. Check the show out. It's a free one, I think, too. So it should be a lot of fun.
So show up early, yeah.
Yeah. And again, rate the podcast. Go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, and rate us. Tell us what we can do better. Hopefully,
go to Patreon.
Yeah, go to patreon.com/Raptors Republic. Blake, we got to make a post about that because we need cash. We need cash.
Yeah, we'll talk about it off air.
All right, thanks, listener, and see you next week. Hopefully on Monday. Bye bye.